Well, I'm thinking into the next 100 years, so.
Yeah.
There we go.
Have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is
Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the three pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today's guest is Kendra Dinkins, President and CEO of Taylor Electric Company, a Black-owned, female-owned, and family-operated business serving the Chicagoland area since 1922. She's the fourth generation of her family to lead the company, which specializes in residential, commercial, industrial, and maintenance electrical work. Some notable projects that they've worked on is electrical upgrades at the Willis Tower, or for Chicagoans, also known as the Sears Tower. Ongoing work at O'Hare Airport, including Terminal 5 expansion, maintenance, Soldier Field, and guaranteed rate. As a Sox fan, I still call Comiskey since 1990. And then projects for organizations like the Chicago Public Schools, University of Chicago, Loyola Medical. And one that's really cool is you guys lit the City of Chicago Christmas tree this year, which I don't know. It seems like that's probably like not the most biggest project, but it just seems fun to me. So I love that. Some of Kendra's professional achievements is she serves the executive committee of the Electrical Contractors Association of the City of Chicago. She's past president of the Federation of Women Contractors, founding member and past president of Black Contractors Owners and Executives, also known as BCO, co-chair of the March of Dimes Construction and Transportation Awards, ex officio member of Taylor Electric Cares, a nonprofit promoting opportunities for women and minorities in the electrical industry. She was inducted into the Electric Association of Chicago Hall of Fame in 22 and named one of Crane Chicago's business notable women in construction and design in 21, to name a few of the amazing things she's done. And with all that said, Kendra, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, when I was going through the bio, I was like, what do I cut? And I'm like, I can't cut any of this. This is all amazing. And I had so much commentary. We love Chicago because inherently spot located in Chicago, headquartered there. And me living there most of my life, it was just like, oh my God, like I know all of these things and it's so fun. So it was just really exciting. So, and over 100 years in business, fourth generation, Black owned, women owned, like you are doing all the things that are against the rules. It's like you are beating all the odds out, which I love. But tell us more about it. I'm obviously gushing about it, but you tell us your story. How did you get into construction, and tell us about Taylor?
Sure. So like you said, Taylor Electric, we're 102 years old now. So it started by my great-grandfather in 1922. As you can imagine, back then it was kind of tough to get started in the industry as a Black man, but he actually, through the correspondence, mail correspondence, he learned the trade on his own. He begged the school to let him take the test, and they allowed him to do so. He ended up having to work for contractors for free for a year just to learn it on his own. And then Taylor Electric Company was started as a necessity so he can go out, strike out in business for himself and do for himself.
Could you remind the people real quick, because I think people don't necessarily understand what it was 100 years ago. Paint a little bit of a picture of what you couldn't do as a Black man.
So one of the things is, like I said, he took the class via mail correspondence. Well, back then, the U.S. Postal Service did not deliver books to Black folks. It was clear that, education is a key, and there are a lot of different barriers to education, and a lot of government-sponsored barriers to education. So he actually found a white friend to order the books for him, and he took those classes online, not online, but via mail. And then he showed up to the school and begged, to let them take the test. So yeah, here's another not funny story. One of his nicknames was actually Shotgun Sam, because he used to have to sleep on his job sites with a shotgun, or else, the next morning all the pipe and wire would be pulled out. When he started pulling, when he first started pulling permits as Taylor Electric Company with the city of Chicago, they'd figure out where he was with those permits and come to his job sites.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Is a world that's, does it still happen today? Yes, but it's way more rare.
Exactly. It's a little bit different these days. You just have the implicit bias that I think we're all trying to fight off. But, still some barriers to education, still a lot of things going on. We at Taylor and some of the other organizations I'm at, we're trying to fight that at every corner. So.
It's like I said it before, like against all odds. Resilience is not enough of a word to describe Taylor. That's certainly. So cheers to Shotgun Sam. Certainly.
So, you didn't automatically just get into Taylor.
No.
So tell us, and you're fourth generation, right? So there's 3 generations in front of you before even you got to be at the helm. And that's such a rarity. Like a 100-year-old company is rare air on its own. Fourth generation, that is super rare air. After second generation, a lot of times it fizzles out. So fourth generation, holy cow.
Exactly.
And then Black and women owned, like you are in the 0.001% or something like that of companies like to have survived.
Something like that. Like when I first took over, somebody sat me down and was like, only 6% of family-owned businesses make it to the 4th generation. And I was like, thanks. So I came out of it. I came in a very roundabout way. So my dad actually started at Taylor as an apprentice, worked his way all the way up to chief of operations. And, he was old school in his head. He knew what was happening in the field with women in the industry. And, it was also back when everybody was promoting college over trade school. So, he's like, I'm not busting my butt out here in the field just so I could have my daughters, do the same after me. So we were forbidden to go to trade school. We had to go to college. He made us go. And so my degree is in biology. 20 years ago, I was teaching and working in an all-girls boarding school out in North Carolina and came back home temporarily, started interviewing at other schools. And my dad was like, oh, no, we need help in the accounting office. And that was
how his tune changed when he needed some help.
Exactly. But yes, that was 2007. And so I've been with the company ever since. I think about in 2013, it became apparent that we were going to start transitioning over. So I had started taking classes in construction management and finance and things of that nature. And in 2015, we finished the buyout agreement and I took over the day-to-day operations.
So you did a lot of schooling. What drew you towards, is it just being around it that drew you towards the industry, or was your arm actually twisted into it?
I was really twisted into it. Like, I was interviewing at other schools, but I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I did jump on the opportunity to stay in Chicago another year or two until I figured it out. Then what happened was, that 2008 recession hit, which for most contractors, if you had a decent backlog, that crunch didn't start to hit you till like 2010, 2011. And so by then I had been there a couple of years. We had to start downsizing and doing different things in different ways to survive. I just started picking up more stuff just as like, this is our family's company, is what you got to do. So, I went from just being the bookkeeper to suddenly being like a junior project manager. And then next thing you know, I'm going head to head with GCs on behalf of the project managers. And so we just started picking up more and more. And it just made sense when 2013 came around and our cousin wanted to retire, that, me and my sister were next in line.
Family obviously being important to any family organization, but what does family mean to Taylor? Like what part of the culture does that create for the organization?
I think it creates a great culture for the organization. Like I said, like this company was started out of necessity so that Sam could take care of his family. And so that's sort of the philosophy that we keep going here. I've got my Taylor Dinkins family that I have to take care of, but I also have about 80 other families depending on us to do some good work and make sure that they consistently have work lined up as well. So I think we work really hard as a family. We make sure that we're looking out for our employees and their well-being. Our philosophy, as long as we're taking care of our employees, they're taking care of our customers.
So when Taylor first started, right, and even when we're talking about, taking it from really previous generation. How has the company changed in terms of what type of work you do, who you do work for, and ultimately you took the helm. You took the helm, so you were able to actually change some things, right? Once you're at the helm, you're responsible. Mm-hmm. You're accountable. You're responsible. That is on you. Whether you win, you fail, that's on you, right?
Yeah.
So what changes have you made and why?
So I think one of the biggest changes I made was sort of making sure we diversified ourselves. When I first came in, we were just following where the money was. And so about 80% of our market share was multi-unit residential, which of course was not fun after the housing crash. So, we do commercial work and other things like that, but I think we'd gotten so bogged down into multi-unit residential that, we didn't have enough diversity to really. We survived, but it was, sort of kind of scraping by. So, we've expanded into the commercial market and the healthcare market, institutional and educational. We actually picked up one more. We've been doing a guaranteed rate field now, Sox Park. Uh-huh. And Soldier Field, we've been doing those for about 20-some, almost 30 years, but we picked up at Navy Pier and a few other smaller customers as well in our service and maintenance department.
So why those markets? Right? Why healthcare? Why, I guess, data centers would be the institutional side?
Yeah, data centers. Well, institutional side would be more like the colleges and things of that. So we kind of stay away from data centers just because we're a little bit small and those are very big and fast paced. But data centers and healthcare and our service and maintenance, those are just sort of steadying markets. Healthcare, you're always going to have somebody sick. So they're always going to be, building something or re-improving something or even the maintenance in their buildings. Data centers, there's more, there's extremely more data, so there's going to be work there. And then service and maintenance. A lot of people, you go after the new construction of the job, but actually you look at the lifespan of a building, 80% of the budget is on maintaining that building. So, getting that maintenance after the building is built is, it's like an annuity. It's always every monthly you got a little bit coming in because you're taking, you've got at least a couple electricians assigned to it looking after it.
Yeah, that's that recurring revenue model, which certainly software loves. Software companies. I mean, I think one of our guests lately had said, it used to be you bought a Microsoft license and then you were good for 15 years, which we don't necessarily recommend that at Spot, but that was what was happening. And now it's oh no, you're paying every month forever. That's just how it works. Construction getting more into that maintenance side of saying hey, you just need stuff done all the time. Helps the business cash flow aspects and things like that. So, and you'd mentioned size and not being the biggest electrical contractor to do institutional work, I think is what you're saying. That means obviously you have to partner, right, to do bigger stuff. What does partnering look like at Taylor?
So for us, we're members of a lot of different organizations. So we come in contact with a lot of different competitors, some of the larger electrical contractors as well. So some of the larger projects that definitely need MBE dollars, we partner up with larger electricals on. Just like in the healthcare industry, we consider ourselves pretty new in that. And so it doesn't make sense for us to go out first job and we're going to bid it and do it on our own. No, let's find a partner that actually does this on a regular basis. Let's kind of learn how they do it and then work on our scale. So we're partnered with some folks on these huge hospitals, but then on our own now we're starting to do little small clinics and things like that on our own as we work to build ourselves to scale up to be able to do a larger sort of project like that. So that's where partnering with larger electricals are really helpful.
Remind me, but isn't it true you have to be under a certain size to essentially get the MBE or WBE status? Is that correct?
Yeah, there are limits to your personal net worth as an owner of the company, and there's also limits to the amount of revenue that you can have, in a certain amount of years. And it varies from state to state, city to city. Chicago follows the SBA, Small Business Association parameters. And so for us, it's not necessarily been about, staying under that radar. We've just been growing basically, with the rate of inflation. But, with our rate of growth, we do necessarily, have to be cognizant that, one day we're going to get kicked out of this program. And we have to, another reason why we started, diversifying is we're going to have to, build ourselves a backlog that's not dependent on public work. And so healthcare and universities and things like that, those are, institutions that we do well in and hopefully will help us in that future.
So what I'm hearing is you're making chess moves. How far into the future are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking into the next 100 years. So
Yeah.
There we go.
You gotta be really long term. I think one thing I learned, like especially when we were, gearing, and it might be a 2 to 5 year plan, but we're thinking about how it's going to affect. I'm thinking about how it's going to affect the next generation. Hopefully, when we make it to the 5th and 6th generation.
That's crazy to think about. Like that, it's already because I assume you've got a lot of time still left at Taylor, certainly.
Yeah.
But you're like, well, the 5th and 6th generation, where are they going to go? What are we going to make sure that we're setting them up for success, which is awesome.
Exactly.
For those programs, the MBE and WBE, what are the caps? What is the restrictions that you do have, and how can we help you increase those restrictions or those caps?
Sure. So I believe SBA for like a subcontractor like myself is 19 million. And then the city of Chicago takes that 19 million and adds, I think, a 1.5 per, 1.5 times that amount, just to make up for the fact that the city of Chicago's got billions of dollars at stake. And so trying to cap all the MBE contractors means you're not going to really get as much MBE work as you're really wanting to get within the city. So I think it's about 23 million spread over, I think, like 5 to 7 years. It's like an average. Once you get over that hump, then for the city of Chicago, you start to say you graduate out of the program, it's a scaled graduation. So the next year, everything that you do, say I do $1 million worth of work, only 75% of it will count as an MBE. So 750,000 of it will be considered MBE dollars. And then it goes down to 50% and 25%. And that's to kind of help with graduation, because a lot of folks, I think the latest stat on graduation is once you graduate out of the MBE or DBE program, you tend to take about a 60% revenue hit, which, black, white, or in between, a lot of people can't take that. So the city is trying to soften that blow in a certain way. I feel like, what we've been going after is increasing the limits, at least for the MEP contractors, because they are so much, a part of the job and have so much involved in it. Like most of your general vertical structures, about 10 to 12% of that budget is the electrical. And that means boots on the ground. That's a whole lot of labor. And, general contractors, I think they have a limit of about 50 million. And a lot of them, sometimes it depends if they're general contractor or a CM, whether or not they even have skin in the game. And so, you've got subcontractors basically funding these projects via our labor and, buying of the materials. And then we're capped at what we can do. Some years I might need to scale up, just to make up for like the COVID losses that we had. Like maybe we got to go a couple of years and scale up our revenue just to make up for that loss. And we can't quite do that in a safe and effective way. So raising the caps, I think more, at least to match inflation. SBA doesn't raise them at least sometimes every 5 years, whereas the price of labor goes up every year, the price of copper goes up every second, so, it needs to be more realistic in that way.
So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, partnering, right? Because you can't do everything. And I remember in the pre-interview, you talked a little bit about what it was like to partner way back when and even now, and learning lessons, right? How do you build trust? How do you find that? And then sometimes even through the relationships, things go well and things go sideways. How does trust kind of compare to that? And do you have any stories around, good and bad examples? Let's not name any names, but let's, good and bad examples of like what can happen in a trusting and not so trusting relationship.
Yeah, precisely. I think what's the most important is that when you're going into, and a lot of times like the pre-meetings and the bid meetings and things like that, when you're talking with the customer or you're even partnering with another electrical, that they're treating you like a true partner. Like they believe you can do this work. You're not just sort of there to check off that MBE box, and you're willing to sort of work together. And they're not just like, well, give us the bid, we'll tell you whether you're high or low or whether or not you got the job. Like they're actually working with you on, you've got questions, they've got answers. they view you and respect you as an actual electrical contractor, not an MBE contractor. It's really important because, of course, when things happen in the field, you tend to be the lowest on the totem pole. So, you just want to try to find a partner that's not going to throw you under the bus in the meantime. And also someone who kind of shares your philosophy. Like we were actually the prime on a project. It was a big box store. We were working with a GC, and they had the philosophy that we're the GC, everything's right, you're wrong, this is how I want it done. And not necessarily want to listen or pay attention, to the point where the job just got slowed down ridiculously for a lot of different reasons. Some of it wasn't even their fault. And the box store, they have their own construction management crew. So they came in town they wanted to come check the site. And the GC was like, oh no, we need to put some generators out there. We need to basically temporarily light the place and make it look like it was way more done than what it was. And we were just like, why don't you just tell your customer what's happening? Or why didn't you just months ago start telling your customers some of the issues that were happening that got us to this point? But instead of that, they just, okay, light it, get it done. And then if it's not right, then I guess you're the problem. You're the one who's holding everything up. And so again, the construction manager came on site. Of course, he's been around the block a few times. He can see when somebody's trying to pull the wool over his eyes. And we had a really good foreman out there who really knew her stuff. And she walked him through the site and said, this is what's done. This is what's not done. This is why things are happening, and really kind of gave them a sort of an eye-opening experience, which, we ended up finishing the job. It was on time. I don't think we made any money off of it. But again, the GC, they got their stuff in on time. We got our stuff in on time. And, I think we still bid to them, and we're probably a little bit more cautious when we go into jobs with them, but they also know us to be someone who's going to stick to our word and finish a job no matter what. So the main kind of partnerships we like to have are ones where, we're involved in day one. We're helpful in the design and build process. We're in their shop, they're in our shop. We walk sites together, we come up with plans together, we solve problems together, we take hits together. Those are the kind of relationships you want to have.
Do you find that GCs or CMs try to dictate more, right? Obviously you're coming in because you are the expert at that trade, right? It's just we wouldn't hire a company to do our marketing and then try to tell them how to do marketing. Right? Why would we do that? That seems silly. Obviously you can have questions and hey, this is guidance on different things, but you're the experts. I've hired you to tell me how we should do this thing. So is that something that you've just seen in the industry where it's when you're a specialty trader or a subcontractor, you just find that there's a level of disrespect effectively of hey, we're the experts. That's just true. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I do. I see we often kind of run into that from time to time. And some of it, I think, is, like I was saying, that implicit bias that comes in, especially if you're coming in as an MBE or woman-owned contractor. A lot of times they make that assumption that you don't know what you're doing. And, like I tell my staff all the time, it's about being consistent and the work product that you do and the communication that you have. I tell them all the time, be so good at your job, because a lot of this is, this industry seems large, but it's really a lot of people know each other and a lot of folks talk. And so I tell them, be so good at your job that if somebody, on the street says something bad about Taylor Electric, no one's going to believe them. No one's going to believe them. They're going to well, I don't know. They finished this work. They did this job and they were good with me. I don't understand what you're talking about, sort of thing. So I think consistency is key. To sort of, endure those kind of issues. I think, with a lot of the DEI and different things and inclusive initiatives, I think, as the more of those gets pushed, I think the more folks are exposed to different types of contractors, different types of people, and understand that we all, are in this together and, interested in getting the work done and capable of doing the work.
How do you fight that stigmatism, right? It's essentially what it is, right? It's just we are woman-owned. We are minority-owned. That is just a fact. But that doesn't change the fact that we're also a fourth-generation, 100-year-old company that, knows what we're doing. How do you fight that stigmatism?
So it's not, I tell people, it's not my job to tell you how much I'm worth. I can sit here and fight all day. As long as I am making sure that Taylor Electric is better than they were yesterday, then that's what we need to do. Like we're not going to get all the jobs. Usually when we get our foot in the door, then it becomes a long-term relationship. And that's because of that consistency. But if I spent all my time fighting, we would be nowhere. I think just trying to be the best that you can be is going to be your best bet. And that helps, that does eventually, that helps with other contractors that are coming through the door after me, that they see, okay, well, this contract, they actually know what they're doing and they can get it done. That's our focus is just us right now.
I love that at Spot, one of our core values is continuous improvement. And that's it, right? If every day you just get a little bit better as a company and as a human being, right? Like you always end up in a better place at the end, and you have less time spent trying to prove the fact that you're valued. I love that mindset that you have.
So, even as a 100-year-old company, you're continuing to learn. Talk to us a little bit about, so partnerships is one aspect, but what about customers? You said before, you said yes to almost everything, and now that's not necessarily the case. Why is that?
Yeah, I think when I first came in, it was a hard learned lesson for me. When I first came in, we were a bit cash strapped. We definitely need to boost our revenue. So it was just sort of yes to everything. We'll take this. It'll be, it might be a little bit tight margin, but we can get it done, and, learn the very hard way that that's just not always the way to go. So, we're definitely more mindful, purposeful when we take a look at jobs. We take a look at the customer. We might take a look at if we've done work with them, what's their pay history? Can we afford to, even if they're like a 60-day payout contractor or a 90-day payout contractor, can we afford to do that? Does that fit within our cash flow? Is it work that we can really do and do well with margins? And, sometimes we have to say no to folks. Sometimes it's because, we just feel like the timing or the margins won't work for us. But sometimes we got to be realistic that we're not going to give them the product that they want. And we'll tell them that up front, like, we might not be the best fit for you. Someone who's in a lot of advocacy organizations, I could probably point you in a direction of somebody who could be a fit for you. And, that has earned us some respect amongst the industry and has earned us more work sometimes.
So just to be clear, just for our listeners, has saying no hurt any relationships? No, I've never had a customer that I said no to completely walk away from us. A lot of times if we're saying no, we're telling you why. Like, it might just be, hey, you know what? The timing is not right. I've got too much on my plate right now. This won't get the attention it deserves. Or it might be, hey, this is too big, too fast. I would like to bid it, but I would like to bring in a partner. Are you okay with that? Or, it's like, hey, no, we're not the specialty that you need. Here's a contractor that is the specialty. And that way they know they can trust us. Most of the time, a bid is a bid. You got the numbers there. But a lot of the times the customer, they want to know who they can trust for the next 2 years to get this job done. So if you're coming at it from a position of trust, if you're coming at it in a way that's honest, and, sometimes a lot of times we've said no and they're like, okay, well, no, we're willing to work with you on this. We know you don't have a full on BIM department, but we'll lend you our guys, or we would point you in the right direction of a company that can get it done. We still want you on this project, sort of thing. Because if at the end of the day, if, they've got to risk, $5 million on the job with a contractor they trust and know that's going to give them the honest truth, or risk $5 million on a job with someone who's just got the low bid and you're not, they're just promising you the world without, really giving you any kind of details or anything like that. You might go with the customer, with the contractor that you trust.
That's another similarity in our businesses. Another core value of ours is being candid. So like it's why we enjoy you so much. It's pretty straightforward. Will has met you multiple times, but the first time we spoke, literally just earlier this week, I was like, oh my God, Kendra's amazing. Like she's just great. So it makes sense when you find people that are just similar in what they value and like what is important to them. It means a lot. And obviously your partners then see that, right? You can't do everything. So saying no also just leads to more respect in a deeper relationship, is what it sounds like.
I love the candor, as well as in addition to like the why, right? I think answering the why, not just being short with someone, even if that is, you are being candid, but the why to help set sort of that expectation, right? And transparency in your own company. I think it's looking out in a way that's looking out for the customer, right? Or what could potentially be the customer but they're just not going to be your customer this time around.
Right.
And the industry is just not as big as people think. Everyone knows everyone.
Exactly.
So I want to take it internally for a second, internal to your company, because there is, and especially because it's family, there's other family members, right? Which means that their ownership isn't just 100% you. It's really multiple family members. So I've heard good things and bad things in partnerships, but family makes a different dynamic. Okay. I imagine it's hard. However, I want to hear it from you. How do decisions, like I would think big decisions, but how do decisions get made in the business?
So we're spread against third and fourth generation ownership with the company right now. So it's 3 owners, me, my sister, and my cousin. And so, it boils down to a lot of trust and trying to be as open as possible. It's definitely not easy all the time. We have had a couple of difficult Thanksgivings where we kind of show up and throw food on the table, say your prayers and eat, and all right, bye. So, but I think at the end of the day, we've had to have the heart-to-heart discussions that at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to be able to, be successful, pass this on to the next generation. So, as long as a lot of the times, ultimately, I'm the person making the final decision, but I'm also letting the family know exactly what's going on step by step. We have family meetings. We have our board of directors, which is all family. And so they're definitely giving a lot of input, even though there's only 3 owners. You ask the family, there's about 6 or 7 people who are, bonded with the company in some way or the other that are very helpful.
So obviously mentality, you're the final decision maker. Mentality around certain decisions. So you're the 100-year outlook decision maker, right? You're looking really long term. So I want to put some context to this, just because of my own personal experiences. Is it hard to keep family members accountable for their actions? And in addition to that, how do you keep accountability in that type of a structure?
I'd say it's really difficult to hold family members accountable because you don't want to, you love them. And at the end of the day, you want what's best for them. But you also need to understand you got to love the company and want what's best for the company. I think sometimes a lot of it is really hard to keep me accountable. Like, who's holding me accountable here? Sometimes with some of the decisions I make, I think I struggle with that sometimes. That comes from for us, it comes from like the family conversations where we have to have a sit down like, hey, this is what's working and this is what isn't working. We try to be as agile as possible. Like, this might not be a fit for you, but do you want to help out here? Or, we're just when we're looking to bring on family members, like what are their strengths and weaknesses and kind of guide them in that direction. But, we've had to come down hard. We've had to fire family members and I think, it might put some relationship on the strain of the family, but I think also the staff need to know and understand that there's accountability there, even at the higher level. If they see a family member and they're, like, oh my gosh, well, they're a family member, they can't do X, Y, and Z, and they see that they're being held accountable as well. They, understand that at the end of the day, everybody, is on the same page and they've got the opportunity to grow and move up in the company and not necessarily think that there's some sort of level that they can't attain because it's going to be all family members up there or something like that.
It's the other 80 families that you're putting their interest there too, right? Like if one family member, Taylor family member is for whatever reason isn't doing what they should be doing in whatever capacity, those other 80 families are looking to you to right the ship. So that's going to be a very difficult position, especially when you are going to have Thanksgiving with them, and that creates a weird dynamic. Yeah, that I can only imagine how difficult that can be.
Yeah. As long as the money's flowing okay, then the family dynamics seem to be going well.
Got it.
I think we've learned a lot over the years. We've survived a couple of recessions and the Great Depression, so we'll just keep going.
Yeah, blow my mind right now. Didn't even put that together. Oh yeah, not just 2008, not just COVID. Oh yeah, the Great Depression, by the way. That's one that we got in the feather in the cap. No big deal.
You've survived a lot of hardships, you as in the company, and you personally with companies that you've survived, 2008, 2009. How do you see it coming, or is it more you have to react and then make quick decisions? And what type of decisions, hard or not, do you have to make when let's say those recessions happen, are coming, etc.? Talk us through that.
Sometimes you can't see it coming. You got to pay attention to sort of the politics that's going around, some of the economic, situation that's going around. You got to really pay attention to current events. And that usually sometimes gives you an idea of what's happening around you. So, I think we've been, that last recession we had, with that minor, I think it was sort of a minor recession, but I think we were sort of prepared for it. A lot of times construction can be cyclical where, there's a lot of work going on in the city, and then all of a sudden it's sort of shrinking. Like right now, you don't see a whole lot of cranes up. So things have been kind of slow, but 2025 and 2026 is actually looking quite better. I think understanding how those trends go. So a lot of times in a recession, governments like to spend themselves out of a recession, which is great. That means there's a lot more public work going because they're going to try to prop up the construction industry in that way. So understanding what happens during a recession is also very important. But then you also, every now and then you're going to get a gut punch that you don't see coming, like COVID. For us, COVID beat the crap out of us, excuse my language. But that was really tough. We had just, we were, climbed ourselves out of, what was happening with that last recession just to kind of get hit. It was a smaller company, and especially sometimes MBE, DBE contractors, a lot of times we can be sort of the canaries in the coal mine. They start struggling, then the rest of the industry is probably going to start struggling. But you got to pay attention to it. A lot of people just like, oh, well, they're smaller, or they don't, know what they're doing, and that's why they're struggling. No, that's the signal that, hard times are coming for all of us. They're just, hitting them first, sort of thing. So at this, really just paying attention. Sometimes you're going to be prepared. A lot of times, sometimes you're not. But I think communicating is also just really, really important. I think we really had to come together and really communicate, really kind of change some of the ways that we did. We were a little old school right before COVID, and we're working our way through that. So I think that kind of exacerbated the issue for us. But, you learn as you go. If you're not learning anything, that next recession hits and you're in the same spot, then, you probably deserve what you get.
So I want to make sure that I'm not misinterpreting or reading between the lines here. Do you keep, so during, let's say, the recession or the COVID, do you keep all your people, or do you have to furlough, lay off people? What happens during those really rough times, right? And let's be honest here for a second. It's not that they're doing a bad job. Literally, the decision-making process or the thinking behind it is, if the company doesn't survive, then the rest of the people, no matter who the decision is with, then doesn't survive either, right? So you're kind of are you making decisions for sort of the greater good of the mass amount of people that you're responsible for?
Yeah, unfortunately, you do have to make those sort of decisions to try and avoid to have, I guess what you say, like massive layoffs or anything like that. Is we keep a core group. So we fluctuate anywhere between about 40 guys to 100. We know that about 60, 65 keeps us going at the very base. So we try to keep that core group working at all times if we can, so that when hard times do hit, we can at least try to keep those folks going, or those core people who have been with us. We've got electricians, even though they're union electricians and they belong to IBEW Local 134 or Local 9, they've been with us for at least a decade or two now. They know how we operate. And so if we come to them and say, hey, times are hard, we might need you to sit for a little while, or, it might be a little bit time in between jobs, they understand what's going on. They're willing to kind of tough it out with us, because a lot of times, as union electrician, you can always pick up work some places, but at times, things might get a little bit slow. And so you want to stick with a contractor that you trust. And so when those slow times hit and, they're there with us, we're pretty honest with them about what's coming up with the horizon, what's going to be happening. And, if you ride with us, we'll take care of you. If not, then, that's your decision as well. It's tough it's tough because, you want to take care of them, but you also can't take things personally. At the end of the day, everybody here has got their own family, their own partner, their own kids, their own selves to take care of. So they've got to make the decisions that are best for them. So we try to make sure we give them the information of what's happening with Taylor. Like we share our financials with the company. I have once a year meeting where I kind of like the state of Taylor, where we kind of talk about, we analyze what happened with those financials, what the good and the bad were, and kind of where we're moving from there. When things got really, really bad one time after COVID, I sat them down and said, hey, you're going to be the first to know if I got to pull the plug on this. If things are getting this bad to where I'm thinking like we're going to have to file bankruptcy or something like that, you'll be the first to know. You'll know before the bank. You'll know before anybody else, because we want you guys to, have a safe passage to get through where you need to get through and not start missing paychecks because we can't make it or something like that. So I think the tough part is being honest with ourselves as a company and being honest with them. And that might mean keeping them along, or they might, want to skedaddle.
So that's powerful. That's really powerful message, especially in a hard time like COVID, where you are unsure in the moment of like what is going to happen with the organization. So
yeah, and we ended up recovering. So our core group stayed with us. That was, thank God.
So this brings up a different piece, which is loyalty, right? I think loyalty gets put to the test during the tough times. It's not when times are good. When times are good, everyone's winning.
It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy.
It's easy when things are great to stay loyal.
We're rowing the boat, and if one person stops rowing, the boat still keeps moving forward. Great, we're all winning, right? Now we've got the Titanic, or a potential Titanic situation, right? In trying to save the ship, that's when you really know. So, how do you know, or do you only know in crisis? Like who the real, the really loyal people are, and then how do you pay them back?
Well, we definitely try to make sure, I think our overall philosophy of sort of taking care of our customers means kind of knowing taking care of our employees means kind of knowing what they need in the meantime and between time. So, I already know that, a certain person, she or he's probably got some issues, maybe issues going on at home where they might need to work from home 1 or 2 days out of the week, or, we might need to work out a different plan for their schedule, or, sometimes we offer small loans for our employees when there's something happening and they need to jump over a gap or something like that. So you kind of get to know them well, what their needs are. And so when times are hard, you know what you can expect from them, and what not to expect from them. And also not take things personally. Again, they've got their families to worry about. So, loyalty to the company is one thing, but they got to be loyal to their families as well. And you can't take that personally when that sort of bumps head with what it is that you want or need. What you can, best hope for is to, make sure that if you're keeping the lines of communication open, you can kind of see what's happening. Like we had an employee leave once and a lot of people were shocked, but I kind of saw it coming. It still wasn't great. It wasn't, a happy event or anything like that. But, I kind of saw it coming and, we had to recover and recuperate and find somebody else to put in that spot. But again, you've got to really kind of know what you're working with your core group. And that's very helpful in terms of kind of, I guess, assessing loyalty.
You have the family members part of the board. Obviously, your other two partners, sister and cousin. 10 years probably went by faster than maybe you thought, being CEO. A lot of times when we're put in positions to lead things, one of two things poke their head up. Either imposter syndrome of like saying like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this good? Or the other side of like, I can do no wrong. I am, the ego gets in the way. What does that balance and challenge look like in the last 10 years for you? Obviously having family probably helps, anchor you somewhat, but I'd love to hear your take.
So I definitely still to this day struggle with imposter syndrome. I've got a degree in biology and I'm over here trying to sell electrical work. So
I know how to dissect a frog. What else do you need to know about conduit?
Exactly. So I think it's really important to know your strengths and weaknesses. And again, know your team. Like I depend a lot on our team and our family for different things, and knowing when, knowing when to ask for help, that was a hard learned lesson for me as well. But I think knowing I'll take being, suffering with imposter syndrome any day of the week rather than me kind of going in with full confidence thinking I know everything. Because you'll never know everything about anything. Like even if my dad did allow me to go to trade school and I went up and, came up in the business like everybody else, I'd probably still kind of question and make sure that that I'm not just kind of jumping out here on a limb. Because again, it's not just me. I know it's me and my house on the line, but again, I got 80 other families that I got to think about in that process. I'm a big introvert, actually. I know a lot of people don't think that of me, but I am an introvert. So when I am off, I am off. Like I'm PJs and the dog's in the bed, like don't bother me, don't call me sort of thing, because it's exhausting for me to kind of be on, but that's my job. I know that's what I have to do. It's part of my job description. And so, just like everybody else, they may not want to get up and go to work and do, X, Y, and Z, but they get up and do it. So I got to get up and do it as well, sort of thing. But I think as long as you not necessarily, I take myself seriously to a point. I can laugh at myself. I make sure people understand around me and our staff that they can laugh at themselves and also take themselves seriously at the same time. So I think approaching it from that is sort of not only a good way of success, but just sort of from a mental health standpoint, can be very beneficial for yourself and others.
Well, you could have fooled us. So you're a learned extrovert. That's what you are. You and I are very similar in that regard.
Yeah, it's so funny. Will is definitely, I've known him for a very long time. Introvert, no question. But like you get him in like a networking situation, he's like the belle of the ball. Like he'll talk to everybody in the room. Like he's like chatty Cathy. Like it's wild to see this evolution as me and Will have known each other in personal life for a long time. That it's like it's cool. It's super cool to see. But then it's also like me being like, look what Will's doing. Like that's amazing. The stretch that he's having is so personally, but also professionally, like so cool for me to be able to see. So kudos to you for being similar in that way of like, that's not easy. Like going against the grain in any aspect is hard. And you said biology, where it's like, you're one way or you're another way based upon like how, the chemicals in your brain that get released, interacting with human beings and all these different things. And it's like, that to me is wow, where I sit on the other side and I want to talk to everyone ever that was ever made. If I could go back in time in history so I could talk to more people, I'm all in.
Awesome.
Justin, I think it's time for our last question.
Sure. Let's do it. Kendra, if you could go back, not 100 years, just 20 years. So you don't have to go back 100, just 20 years. What advice would you give yourself? What would you tell yourself that might help in your journey in the last 20 years?
I think the biggest thing I've had to learn the hard way on so many occasions is that you are your best asset, that you really got to take care of yourself. And I know people it seems like, oh, self-care is important and everything. And I just say, like for me, I learned the very hard way that if you build your life like around your work and your work is not going well, then in your head, that means your life is not going well. And that's the part that you don't realize when they say self-care and, work-life balance and stuff like that. That's what they're talking about. You've got to have that balance. You've got to be able to, take care of yourself. And, like I tell some other folks, like if the bank sees you treating your number one asset like crap, like why would they give you money? Why would they believe in you? Why would they take a chance on you? So you've got to make sure you're looking out for yourself and your well-being in the process.
I truly believe that the word selfish is such an unfair word. Like you have to be selfish, which sounds like don't do that. Don't be selfish, right? But like you have to be selfish. Like you are the foundation for everything else in your life. If you have kids, if you're just your family in general, your work, foundations that you're in, whatever you're doing relies upon you being right? Like if you giving the best version of yourself will be better for everybody around you. However, that takes work. Like that takes, you have to be selfish. So I love that advice. I think it's so true. I wish I could, wave the magic wand and say hey, it's okay to really take time and care about yourself. Like you don't need to put everybody else ahead of you or everything else in life ahead of your needs. And if that's just taking a walk just to give yourself a little time of clarity, or if it's, not having to think about, what's for dinner for your family every day and just saying like, hey, like somebody else needs to deal with this today. Like those things, which sound silly, like that, but when they stack up, it's so meaningful and unbelievable. So great advice, Kendra. I love that.
Thanks.
This has been insane. I love this episode. So this is great. I'm so happy. We're going to put all your social contacts and stuff in the show notes, but if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
If they want to get a hold of me, you can go to our website, is TaylorElectricCo.com. There's contact information there. Info at Taylor, that'll put you actually towards my executive assistant. So she'll definitely, you contact me directly. Will knows this. He's been stalking me for some time. And at first I was like, you need to meet Charlotte. Like, why are you talking to me? You're not going to get anywhere trying to schedule me like that. But yeah, if you go to our website, you can learn more about our staff. You can learn more about what we're doing, and you can reach out if you need anything or if you want to get involved in our nonprofit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say goodbye?
No, I just, I think we enjoy being in this industry. We've worked hard to serve it as hard as we can, and it benefits us as well. And, we make new friends and meet new people along the way. So this was awesome. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, we appreciate you, Kendra. You've been awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, this has been a ton of fun, listeners. I know that you had a good time too. And until next time, adios.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
Scale.